evening. Let me just start out by saying that my path to being a believer was a rather circular path. I grew up in a Christian household. I attended church regularly, but I wasn't a practitioner. I wasn't a true believer. But later in my life, I had an epiphany, and that epiphany was that I actually had to answer the question, would you die for him? This was in service of our country, in defense of our nation, and we had just started what you would call a holy war, and me as a Christian soldier, truly a Christian soldier, enlisted in the service, had to ask that question to myself every day because I was under fire, I was under threat of actually dying for Christianity. So at that point, my life was changed. I became a true believer. I became a Christian, 100%. The last word, Luke, chapter 23, verse 46. And Jesus cried out in a loud voice, Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. Now, just to put things in place and to give us kind of a sense for what was transpiring at that particular moment, three things were going on at that time. The darkening of the sun at noonday, and it was now about the 6th hour. In other words, Christ had been on the cross about 6 hours at that particular point in time. This was about noon, and there was darkness all over the earth until the 9th hour. 3 hours darkness. The sun eclipsed, the air exceedingly clouded at the same time, both of which concurred to this thick darkness, which continued for 3 hours. The rending of the veil of the temple occurred. The former prodigy was in heaven, and this in the temple for both of these are houses of God. And when the Son of God was thus abused, they could not but feel the indignity, and thus signifying their resentment of it, by this rending of the veil was signified and taking away the ceremonial law, which was the wall of partition between the Jews and the Gentiles. That was a significant rendering of the cloth. So, and if we further explain that, so that we may boldly go to the throne of grace. In other words, we didn't have to stand on one side of the veil and have the high priest be our messenger. We could go directly to God at that particular time. So this was done out of their displeasure for what they did at the Christ at that particular time, the suffering of Christ. And that led us to an explanation about those words that Christ and Matthew and Mark have a rendering here, and they said that, but I'm going to quote here. It was a loud voice, he said, to show the earnestness and that all people might take notice of it. And this he said, Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. The seventh word. He borrowed these words from his father David. Psalm 31, verse 5. Not that he needed to have words put in his mouth, but he chose to make use of David's word to show that it was the Spirit of Christ that testified that in the Old Testament prophets, and that the Spirit of Christ came to fulfill the Scripture. In other words, this was one of the proofs to actually prove that he was the Christ, that he was the Messiah. Christ died with Scripture in his mouth. Well, let's just think about that. Christ died with Scripture in his mouth. And at the moment that, say, a person feels that this is it, it's my last breath, how many of us would actually think to praise God or to have any scripture whatsoever that came to mind and actually use our last breath to utter that particular scripture? This was significant, very significant. When he was giving up his life and soul for us, he did for us call Father, and we thought he might receive the adoption of sons. Christ made use of the words in a sense particular to himself as mediator. He was now to make his soul an offering for our sin, to give his life a ransom for many by the eternal Spirit to offer himself. He was himself both the priest and the sacrifice. Our souls were fortified, and he must go to redeem the forfeiture. The price must be paid into the hands of God. In other words, in order to redeem mankind, he offered his soul, Son of God, as ransom sacrifice in order to save mankind. It goes on to say that the price must be paid into the hands of God, the party offended. In other words, God was the party offended by sin. To him, he had undertaken to make full satisfaction. Now by these words, he offered up sacrifice, did as it were, lay his hand upon the head of it, and surrendered it. I deposit it, I pay down into thy hand. Father, accept my life and soul instead of the lives and souls of the sinners I died for. Powerful. This was his prayer. This is what he was called to do. And for those of us who particularly are encouraged to have a purpose-driven life, Christ showed that his life had purpose when he had accomplished this particular task. He knew that his purpose was to die for our sins, to die for us. He died for you, he died for me. He died for us. Again, as we go on, he cheerfully willingnessly to offer himself as he had done, and when it was first proposed to him. In other words, God, when he first entered the garden, and he said, and forgive me, I'll just have to paraphrase, that is this truly what you want me to do, God? And then God spoke to him and said, it's time. It's time that we accomplish what we were proposing to do. God's plan has been laid out. I've given you this plan, and it's time for us to execute the plan that I have already. So God knew before he entered the garden that at that particular point in time that he was going to have to redeem or not, because a lot of people have said to themselves, Why not Peter? Why not Paul? Why not one of the disciples? Why take the leader and pretty much have him leave the world? And when he left the world, of course, everybody would say, well, if Jesus is gone, then so is the Word. We're done. That's it. Why not take Peter or one of the other disciples and let Jesus continue? Let Jesus preach the Word and make us all much happier. But no, that was his purpose. He knew that when he entered the world, that his purpose was going to be in that particular vein. He didn't know when. He didn't know how. It could have been just as easy for God to just say, okay, it's time to go, strike them down, and it's over. But he chose crucifixion to prove to the world that his particular son was not in favor, didn't get the gentle, didn't die in his sleep or something easy. He chose the hard way. He chose suffering. He chose the most horrendous death that anyone could face, crucifixion. It really amazes one when you read about the passion and the judgment and the crucifixion that our Lord Jesus Christ had to go through. It was just tremendous. And so I think I'll pick up on here at this particular point. And we must show freely that we are willing to die and that firmly believe in another life and a desiriousness of it by saying, Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. I truly believe, and he truly believed that when he did die, he commended his spirit to his Father's hand to be received into paradise and returned on the third day. In other words, he spent 3 days in paradise with the Father, at the hand of the Father. And knowing that when he did die, that this would be the outcome, that he would be returned, but in the meantime, he would spend those 3 days with the Father in paradise. Now, it takes powerful faith to believe that you were going to go to paradise, guaranteed, because it's your home. You're going home. Jesus returned. He returned to the side, the right hand of God, and he knew this was going to happen, and he had no fear of being crucified and killed. He had no fear of that because he believed in God himself. There was a centurion, the commander of the guard that was in charge of the crucifixion, and he was a Roman and a Gentile and a stranger in Egypt. He had just arrived in Egypt. And he said he never saw such an amazing instance of divine power, and therefore took the occasion to admire God as the Almighty. In other words, he pretty much was converted at that particular point. At the base of the cross, Jesus is there. He witnesses Jesus' death. He witnesses his suffering, and he's converted at that particular point. That if a person, and he says that certainly this was a righteous man and was unjustly put to death, God manifested his power so much to honor him that it was a plain evidence of innocency. In other words, Jesus the Lamb, the Lamb of innocence, the Son of God, truly the Son of God, pretty much, even in his death, was able to convert Christians at that particular time. So I'm usually, when I read a Bible story or I'm introduced to a particular chapter and verse, I try to absorb that and to maintain as much of that as I can. Why? So I can share it with others. As a layman and not a true practitioner, this is my only opportunity. This is my only chance to get closer to the Word by listening and learning and being observant and modeling myself after those that I admire, and because they walk the walk. They do walk the walk. And so the seventh word, it goes, Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit, pretty much speaks to itself. He knows that that very next second, that's it. It's time for him to join the Father. And that's the last word, the seventh word. And I don't know if I ran over time or not, but I had a closing picked out, and you can join me if you want to, but I'm going to read this particular prayer, and I'm sure nobody needs to try to remember it, and I'll just read it out loud. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thank you.